Hey guys, welcome back. And today we're going to spend some time to talk about early retirement because, it's a topic today, right? Everyone is talking about it, or at least it's a pretty common topic. Like, there's a whole movement around this, like FIRE, right? Financial independence, retire early. It's very popular in the West. It's catching on, you know, it's catching on here, like on fire. But anyway, yes. I personally find most people's idea of early retirement to be pretty scary, because there's this thought about I need to have so much money and all these passive income that I don't need to work anymore. I can do whatever I want with whoever I want, wherever I want, or some people even worse don't want to do anything. I just want to make so much money and, leave my job. And it's a bit of a problem. Good day, guys. This is Reggie, your podcast host, and I want to take this time to give our mini campaign on Ko-fi.com/The Financial Coconut a shout out. Help us reach our $500 goal so that we can integrate new softwares and hardware for your improved learning experience. We will be releasing more varied content in due time. Stay tuned. Link is in the description below. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you to another day with the Financial Coconut. In our podcast, we'll be debunking financial myths, discovering best financial practices, discussing financial strategies that fits our unique life. You get it. Ultimately empowering us to create a life we love while managing our finances well. And today we're going to explore this very, very on fire topic called early retirement. And I'm going to share with you 3 healthy early retirement tips. Okay, welcome back. And early retirement is this one topic that is like going viral, right? Everyone is talking about it, and there's all sorts of ways to interpret this idea of early retirement. And I do think that generally there's 2 camps of people in this space. There are those that are, trying to make so much money and stop doing anything and do nothing, right? There's that camp, which I find extremely unhealthy, right? Because you're clearly not enjoying your life and work, but instead of addressing those questions head on, right? Which you subscribe to this idea of like making more, right? So it is just an extension of I need more money to solve my problems, but the extension goes so far as I need to make so much to retire from this shit. And so people in this camp will end up biting the bullet and, just focus on gathering all the money and live the shit show. But they end up becoming super susceptible to all your fake gurus trying to sell you a course, and your inner struggles with your lives, right? Like your social awkwardness, your insecurity, your inability to accept authority, which are some of the problems that I used to face. Maybe now I still, find some of these things challenging. We can talk about it another time. But all these problems will not be solved just by focusing on making a lot of money and passive income and retire from work, right? They will get spilled over into other aspects of life. So personally, I find that this is the major camp that is out there. Like a lot of people, when they talk about early retirement, this is their thought, which is to make so much money or create passive income so they don't need to work. Right? And I find this extremely unhealthy. I don't agree with this camp. I mean, you don't need to look very far, right? Just need to go downstairs to the kopitiam. You see the uncle aunties down there, right? And many of them are pretty cash rich. They work for all these years and they have gathered all their money, all their capital, and they sit down there and complain about everything, right? So to me, that is not a great way to retire, right? So there's the other side, the other camp of early retirement, which honestly are the kind of people that, are focused on finding the life they can love, and while managing their finances well. And when I look at it, this is a healthier way of retirement. You think a little bit like, sportsmen retiring from their competitive sport, right? How a lot of these sports people they are forced to retire, right? They are no longer as competitive after 35, after 40. They have to shift to go into other ways of life, right? So they end up going into things like modeling, or they go into becoming social influencers, or they go further studies and transform their career into another thing, right? So they're essentially retiring from sports. And I think that is a healthier way to see early retirement, which is to find something else that you can love and, have a deeper understanding of yourself. And then you move on into this life that you can love, right? Rather than this whole idea of making so much, and having all these and, no need to do anything, or or then find a way to do something else. So, in my view, essentially, a healthy early retirement is when you are able to find a life you can love and manage your finances well and shift over into that way of life. Right? And to me, that is a beautiful way to retire because you finally, embrace something that you love and understand, yourself a lot better. Like I actually really like doing this whole podcast, setting up all these different content, and sometimes I will, we have a small team. Some of us, most of us are volunteers. We are not making money, but sometimes I'll complain. Wow, very headache, a lot of work, man. This content is so difficult to churn, but deadlines aside, all these kind of creative stress aside, fundamentally when I look at it, I do enjoy what I do, and I'm happy doing what I do, right? And to me, this is kind of like after years of exploration, I finally found something that I like. I can foresee it as part of my life for an extended period of time, and I can manage my finances well with this way of life. And to me, that is me finally searching, finally finding kind of my way of healthy early retirement. And so my first tip, to attaining this quote unquote healthy early retirement is bring your expenses to a basic level and build from there again. I think in a natural progression, there's an inevitable consumption decline, right? And it means as we age, we just consume less lah. You cannot be Hai Di Lao every week when you're 80 years old, right? Cannot be like wapiang, always traveling and going around. And honestly, it looks impossible lah, physically impossible, and so you inevitably will consume less. Yeah, the only thing that probably keeps going up is your bills lah, like your medical bills. That is like your killer. But that aside, I think we're talking about consuming, not on monetary terms, but just on pure consumption, going out, the number of times you go out, the number of times you feast, the number of beer you drink, they all will decline over time as we age. So we definitely consume less. So for most people, right, when they work for 40 years and they gather their surplus and they live off their excess, which is their surplus, for 20 years, that should be relatively easy, right? Because you have more time to work than you have time to quote unquote retire, right? Or not be so bothered about finances. But when you want to shorten this hustle period of 40 years, many try 101 ways lah, and they try to like make alternative income, or they try to focus on exponential income, which most will end up becoming caught in all these kind of scams and fake guru traps. I personally think that if you want to shorten your retirement preparation period, you really gotta spend some effort, looking at your expenses. And that's not to say that you shouldn't spend money or you cannot spend and you gotta be like extreme cheapskate, so that you can retire early. But in my view of early retirement, which I feel like I've did it it's I want to be able to work on maximum satisfaction, which means I want to be able to spend on things that matters to me, rather than the common narrative of, I need to buy a house, I need to buy a car, I need to get this, I need to get that, because that is the social narrative, and that's the social narrative that's peddled out there. But if you don't like it, then there's a very good chance why you want to shift your life away, right? If you like it, then why would you be considering retiring from that narrative and trying to shape a different way of life? So clearly you don't like it as much, so you want to revisit a different way of life. And in this process, you got to revisit all these kind of quote unquote social norms, right? You got to try to challenge yourself in terms of finding out what you actually need and how much you need, to meet all these different needs. How little you can spend on food, how little you can spend on traveling, how little you can spend on having fun with your friends. And from there, you will have a much clearer idea of like, oh, actually, I like to read some books, right? Okay, then you can step up your satisfaction from, by having more budget for books. You can step up your satisfaction because you enjoy having new experiences. So you have set a budget for experiences, every week or something like that. The whole idea is to take this as a challenge to bring down your expenses and then revisit what you like and restructure your way of spending on money based on what you actually love. Don't just think of, I need to buy a house, or I need to go to the bar, or I need to, whatever. Because the central idea is that expenses is a lot easier to control than your income. And because you're going to retire, you're going to fade away from the income that you're used to. One of the easiest things that you have control is your expenses, right? And if you can keep your expenses relatively low, then you're a lot more nimble, and your chances of early retirement is way higher. Not that you can't if you have big expenses, just that the chances are relatively lower, right? Because to sustain a $10,000 a month kind of way of life, or $5,000 a month way of life, you need to work a $5,000 income or $10,000 income, and those income inevitably has certain expectations of how much you need to commit and what you need to do, and they're only in a few sectors lah, for like a better way to put it. Or you need to have a lot of surplus, you need a big bulk of capital to then be able to invest and make that kind of returns. So if your expenses are so high, then it greatly reduces your chance or your ability to retire early. Right, and that is my view. Of course, it doesn't mean that you cannot focus on making more money or increasing, your employability, or trying to find different ways of making income. Those things are important too. But personally, I feel the realistic way of doing it is to really revisit your expenses, even if you're not trying to retire early. But if you're trying to retire early, right, my experience tells me that it is much easier to work on your expenses. So bring your expenses to the basic level and re-understand yourself, then build back your expenses. Which brings me to point number 2, and that is to explore different ways of life. Don't sit there and dream. Okay, I really think a lot of people sit there and dream. It's like, I want to retire. Retire on what? Don't know, leh? Anyway, we'll be back shortly after a word from our sponsor. Hey guys, I know sometimes, you just want to support a friend, and somehow you end up buying too much savings plans, endowment plans, and you're suffocating as a result. I would love to introduce you to Ethan and his team at PolicyWalk. They help you break down the numbers, examine your options, and even take over the policies that you don't want anymore at 10% above surrender value. So check them out at policywalk.com/thefinancialcoconut. Link is in the description below. So explore different ways of life, right? And I bring you back to the sportsmen, right? Essentially, most of the sportsmen, I like to use them because they are one of the best specimen to look at when it comes to early retirement, because they are forced to do it. All right, so when they are trying to fade out from their professional athlete career, they are already exploring, modeling, being a coach, trying a whole different career path out of sport, and they take it in a more systematic, way. And there's the inevitability of their sector. So I think they have already built a lot of structures to help all these sportsmen to retire from competitive sport. But we could learn from them, right? So while you are working your current job, while you are doing whatever you're doing at this point in time, and you know that actually this way of life is not really my thing, don't sit there and dream and think of something else and hope that one day, I can retire, because you want to work on it, right? So while you're working your banking job, I think a lot of people work in the bank, they really want to quit, okay, or your auditing job, so because these are my friends, a lot of them are in this sector. So not against banking or auditing per se, but okay, let's say you are in a banking, okay, you're a banker and you want to quit your banking life. So what do? You don't sit there and hope that you will have a different way of life, or hope that you will think of a different way of life. You could always go on the weekend and go and learn something else and try a different way of life, and see different things, because I think there are a few success stories out there. I vaguely remember, I think I saw on Seth Louis' channel, right, there's this Michelin star restaurant at Esplanade called Labyrinth, right? It is by Chef Han, which he used to be a banker, right? And what he did on the weekends was he went to different restaurants to work, and he essentially took the effort to shape his life and try a different way of life rather than sit there and wait. So he kept up with his day job and went to try a different thing. And after years, today he runs a Michelin star chef restaurant at Esplanade. And honestly, it doesn't mean that you need to, quit your job and find another peak in somewhere else, right? Or you don't need to be a Michelin star chef essentially. But the idea is that when you go and explore, when you go and see, that is the time when you can actually find a life you love. Let me just put it this way, okay? You cannot build a life you love on things that you don't like. You cannot build a life to, based on things like, I don't like this law, then that is your life. Impossible. You will never enjoy a life. You need to build your life on things that you love. You need to build on your life on the clarity of what you actually enjoy. So more importantly, I think we need to see retirement as, us trying to transit to something else rather than not doing anything. And to me, that is a much healthier way of retirement. So if you have a certain inkling of what you may enjoy, then spend more time with it, right? If you think maybe I could be a freelance photographer, or I want to switch over to do more remote work so that I can travel around, so you have certain inkling, then entertain those inklings, right? And if you do not, you just only know that you don't like your current life and you want to switch, then dedicate time and dedicate the effort to explore different things to ultimately find the other life that you can transit towards, and to me that is healthy retirement rather than not doing anything lah. Which brings me to point number 3, that is to enjoy the journey, enjoy the discovery process. While we are trying to shape a life we love, while we are trying to manage our finances such that we can optimize ourselves to be able to live the kind of life that we want to, I think a lot of people are in a rush. And when I say that, I'm not saying that you cannot be on the pursuit of the life that you want and retire into that life. But if you're in a rush, more often than not, it's very tainted with a lot of problems. So at this point, I want to share with you a little story. And I share this story with a lot of people. Whenever someone tells me, I want freedom, or I want to, attain financial independence, I want to be a fire, whatever. Anytime someone tells me something like that, I share with them this story. Okay, and the story goes like that. So today we make our way to the garden, right? This beautiful garden, or let's say Botanic Garden. We take MRT, then we reach Botanic Garden, which apparently is a UNESCO site, by the way, guys. So if you have not been to Botanic Garden, I don't know what you're thinking. Go to Botanic Garden, okay? That's a great place to be. So at Botanic Garden, I gave you a task, right? Can you please go in and search for the most beautiful flower and snap a photo and let me know, okay? So what happens is, very likely you will go in and you will browse around, right? You'll look at the different flowers, you look at the different orchids. They have a very beautiful orchid park, by the way, not sponsored. But anyway, so if STB want to sponsor, more than happy. But anyway, okay, back to the story. So I give you a task to go in to find the most beautiful flower, right? So what you do, you go in, you search, you look around, and then maybe after a few steps, you see this very beautiful orchid, right? Purple color, beautiful. And then you're like, wow, actually this is quite a nice flower. And then you admire it and think of it whether, is this the most beautiful flower around? And maybe at the point in time you say yes, and then after that you look around the other side and say, oh, hey, there's a beautiful sunflower over the other end, right? And then you walk over and then you look around and you see the beautiful sunflower. Oh, quite nice, right? Pretty good. Then after that you walk to the other side and then you see this like morning glory, beautiful blue color flower, right? I think it's blue color anyway. So and then you'll be like, oh, very nice, beautiful, and then you come out. At the end, you may choose a flower and you tell me it's beautiful, or you may just tell me that, hey, I just saw a beautiful garden. There's just so many beautiful flowers along the way. And now I give you a different task, right? I give you a different task to go in. I give you a picture I send to your phone. Look for this flower with 3 red petals and 2 yellow petals, right? So you go in. Very likely the chances are you will only be looking at this one flower. You'll be looking at your phone, looking at this picture, trying to find this one flower. Right, and you go in, you will not look at other things. You will just be browsing very quickly, looking for this flower. And at the end, when you come out, you can only give me 2 answers. Either I have found it or I have not. And then when I ask you, have you seen how beautiful the garden is? You say you haven't. In the grand scheme of things, life is a lot more nuanced, a lot more complicated. It is not just a financial challenge. So when I look at it, I think you really got to enjoy the journey. And yeah, the ups and the downs are all a part of your search for early retirement, because ultimately you want to find the life you love and retire into it. So yeah, I hope you learned something. We're going to sum up today with the 3 healthy early retirement tips. And number 1 is to bring your expenses to a basic level so that you can, essentially build back up and have the fundamental understanding of what you actually enjoy, what you like, and stay nimble on your search to find the life you can retire into. And number 2 is to explore different ways of life, right? I know you want to, you don't like this current way of life. You don't like what you're doing now. You want to switch, but you cannot create a life based on what you don't like. You need to create a life based on what you like. So while you are conscious and recognize that you want to switch to a different life, then you should go and explore and try out all these different lives to know that, hey, actually I like this. I can build my life on this, right? And number 3 is to enjoy the journey, because honestly, life is a lot more than just finance. It is not all about trying to retire early and escape from this rat race, blah blah blah. So I think that is the common narrative that's being peddled out there. I'm not very comfortable with it. I don't like it per se, because from someone that have been there, done that, I can really tell you that if you have not sorted out other elements of life, it doesn't matter how much money you have. So while we continue our search to become better in terms of financials, in terms of our personal finance, we want to also be better in terms of shaping the life we love. So I hope you learned something useful today. See ya! Hey, I hope you learned something useful today and truly appreciate that you took time off to better your life with a financial coconut. Knowledge is that much more powerful and interesting when shared, debated, and discussed. I hope you would share what you've gained with people you love, and I want to hear from you. Give me some questions and help me along with building our community of financially savvy coconuts. I hope together we can fulfill our curious minds and our desire for clarity. Join our community Telegram group, reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram. Everything is in the description below. And if you enjoy the podcast and feel you want to keep us growing and stay independent, do buy us a Ko-fi at ko-fi.com. With that, have a great day ahead, stay tuned next week, and always remember, personal finance can be chill, clear, and sustainable for all. Test. Okay, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's a bit it was actually pretty difficult to put together because there's just so many angles and so many caveats that we didn't talk about prior. So, it wasn't easy. But yeah, as we go along, we could definitely explore more of early retirement, different concepts of retirement rather than just from the financial angle. Okay. If you're interested, definitely let us know on our Telegram group. Okay. And for next week we're gonna spend some time with the ladies from the Mistress class, which is an initiative created by Marie, which was a guest earlier for our How to Manage Your Finances in a Marriage episode. And they will come on the show to share with us some of the unique financial challenges that women face today. And we have a few. I was actually overwhelmed by a lot of women when we were recording about a lot of ladies. And they are in different fields. So we have Ms. Evelyn Chu, which is a startup, kind of entrepreneurial woman, her young, 20, 30s. Jeanette, which is like, mother, super mom, traveled around the world with her kids and, all this kind of course, Marie, which is like the entrepreneur woman, very powerful alpha woman. So different viewpoints. And I think they are doing this whole initiative to promote women empowerment and try to solve certain problems that are more unique to ladies. So we're getting them on the show to talk about the financial challenges that women face across the board. So if you're a lady or you want to get to know women better, either way, join us next week and we'll see you there. Bye.